Hello, today I would like to share the information of my recent research. It was based on the aviation terms composites. I will start with the relevance of the research topic. It is due to the general trends in translation studies to the study of the features of English composite terms, the peculiarities of the translation from English into Ukrainian. The relevance of the study lies in the need to give a holistic interpretation of the concept of the term, to distinguish its main types, and to analyze the peculiarities of the translation of aviation composite terms into Ukrainian. The object of research is English aviation composite terms. The subject of research of our work is the peculiarities of translation of aviation terms composites into Ukrainian. The theoretical significance of the work lies in the further study of terms and is an integral part of terminology. The main provisions and conclusions contribute to deeper understanding of the essence of English terms. The practical significance of the obtained results lies in the possibility of their use in the further study of the specifics of the creation and translation of English aviation composite terms. The results of our research can be applied in writing scientific papers and serve as a basis for the creation of methodological manuals. The purpose of the work is to substantiate the main science of terminology in English and to find out the peculiarities of translation of aviation terms composites into Ukrainian. Achieving this goal involves the implementation of the following task: describe the concept of term, consider the classification of terms, to investigate the peculiarities of the creation of composite terms in the English language, analyze the specifics of the creation of aviation composite terms, explore the peculiarities of reproduction of English composite terms in Ukrainian. The content of the coursework consists of the following section. Section 1, theoretical aspects of the study of English terminology. Section 2, features of aviation terms composites and their translation into Ukrainian. In the first chapter, we learned that after tracing the features of the concept of term and a number of definitions offered by different linguists, it was found that today there is no generally accepted definition of the concept of term. Taking into account the definitions of various scientists who have studied the concept of the term, its own definition was formed, which consists in the fact that the term should be called a word or phrase that performs a special function of nomination of special scientific concept, has a definition, and is an element of a certain thermosystem. It was found that today there are many classifications of terms, but still there is no single and generally accepted. In our opinion, this may be due to the fact that terms are an important component of different branches of sciences, in each of which their division is carried out according to different criteria. In our work, we will use the classification of terms belonging to the aviation industry, classification of Tatiana Chik. During the study, it was found that wording in the lexical semantic system of the English language occupies an important place, because it is one of the leading sources of replenishment and development of vocabulary due to the existing complex of functional and structural units, according to the classification of English composite terms and their translation to Ukrainian. Karban distinguishes the following main models: noun plus part 1 plus noun plus part 2 plus noun, adjective plus part 1 plus noun, adjective plus part 2 plus noun plus part 2 plus noun. The terms of the model noun plus noun, combining noun with a noun, are translated as follows. A complex term with the Ukrainian equivalent of noun 2 is in the form of generic case as a post-educative definition to the noun 1 equivalent. For example, accuracy analysis. Анализ точности. A complex term with the equivalent of noun 1 is an adjective. For example, backroom deals. Закулисні угоди. A complex term with the Ukrainian, the equivalent of the noun 1 is an example. Hammer car, вагон press. A complex term with the Ukrainian equivalent of the noun 1 is transformed into preposition noun phrase. For example, labor cost, витрата на робочу силу. A complex term with noun 1 is transformed into a subordinate sentence. A dormant partner. Пайовик, який не бере участі в управлінні компанією. A complex term where N1 is converted into a phrase containing the direct equivalent of the noun 2. For example, application period, термін подання заяви. Term models noun plus part 1 plus noun. The second component of these complex terms, and noun, is translated into Ukrainian noun, and the first component, noun plus part 1, is translated in most cases using the following methods. A subordinate signified sentence where part 1 is transformed into a predicate and the noun appendix. A simple adjective, the basis of which is the equivalent of an English noun or part 1. Terms of the model, noun plus part 2 plus noun. The second component, noun, is a term of these terms is translated into Ukrainian by a noun and the first component, noun plus part 2, is usually translated in the following ways. A subordinated signified sentence where the participle to is converted into a predicate and the noun into appendix. A deified phrase where the English participle to corresponds to the Ukrainian adjective or participle. Terms of the model: adjective plus part 1 plus noun. The second part of such terms and is a noun is translated into Ukrainian noun, and the first part of such terms is translated adjective plus part 1, combination of adjective and participle 1, translated as a rule in the following ways. A complex adjective from two bases and a verb, numeral or adjective base, go into an English adjective and an adjective to the equivalent of an English participle. A simple adjective, which often corresponds to the English adjective. A subordinate signified sentence where the first component of the English word is changed to the circumstance and the second component participle to the predicate. In the second section in this course of our research, the specifics of the creation of English composite terms on the material of the sample from the Thematic Dictionary of Aviation Terminology, or Makdinova, which is 80 units were considered. First of all, aviation terms from our sample were divided into terms both, for example, stroke, and derivatives, touchdown, and terms phrases, complex, two components, for example, baggage storage, and composite, three or more components, again, commercial air transportation, conventional takeoff and landing, CTOL, aircraft. As it was found, terms words often consist of one base, and the terms phrase consists of two components. It was found that often aviation terms are formed by the suffix method of word formation and include prefixes of Greek and Latin origin. Translation of composite terms, taking into account the heterogeneity of the structure, requires the professionalism of the translator, in particular appropriate skills in the use of translation transformations. In the process, it was found out that most often in our sample, composite terms were translated using the translational transformation of tracing, less often through word permutation and specification, least often through descriptive translation, addition and omission of the word. In the process of work, it was found that the most typical among them are the following groups of terms: to indicate machines, mechanism, equipment, devices. Amphibious aircraft, літак амфібія, conventional takeoff landing aircraft, літак звичного польоту та посадки, carrier-based aircraft, літак авіаносного базування, fan-powered aircraft, літак з турбовидимтовими двоконтурними двигунами, in-service aircraft, повітряне судно, що знаходиться в експлуатації, piloted aircraft, пілотоване повітряне судно. As you can see, this group of aviation terms is represented by terms that denote the types of aircraft, each of which is characterized by certain features. Many identified terms formed with the help of component borrowing. These are mostly affixes of Greek or Latin etymology. Air, baro, trans, gyro, turbo. Here are examples of aviation terms with prefixes of Latin or Greek origin. Air, tail-aft aircraft, літак з хвостовим горизонтальним оперенням. Baro, barometric attitude, барометрична висота. Trans, transshipment, перевантажування, перевалка. Gyro, gyro compass alignment, виставлення гірокомпасуванням. Turbo, turbopropeller aircraft, літак з турбогвинтовим двигуном. It can be argued that the prefixes are subject to English terms, which in general have both one and two components. Let us distinguish the following translation transformation that were used to reproduce English aviation composite terms from our sample. Calculus, energy balance, rotational balance, nose balance, осьова компенсація. These examples demonstrate the use of translational transformation of calculation. That is the transfer of the combinatorial composition of the term. English composite terms consist of two components and their translation, respectively, and also includes two components. Descriptive translation, proximate traffic, повітряне судно, що знаходиться поблизу, body access, зв'язана система координат літального апарату. In the above examples, there is use of translation transformation of descriptive translation. That is, English aviation composite terms are translated by describing their meaning, because the language of translation does not include matches that would have the same short form as the original language. Word permutation, detailed aircraft, літак з Т-подібним хвостовим оперенням. Powered compartment, кабіна пілотів. These examples use the translation transformation of word permutations, that is, some lexical units that have been moved without losing their meaning. Concretization of value. Detailed aircraft, літак з Т-подібним хвостовим оперенням. This example uses a specification of the value of the given composite term using lexical units, подібне хвостовому парені. Adding a word. Surface ionization engine. Електростатичний ракетний двигун з поверхневою іонізацією. In the example above, there is an addition to the Ukrainian equivalent of lexical units, electrostatičný and ракетний, with which the recipient Ukrainian will be able to better understand the meaning of the term. Word convexness. High density air traffic, інтенсивний повітряний рух. In this example, the lexical unit high was omitted, but the value of the Ukrainian equivalent has not changed. Of the total number of composite terms, complex and compound terms phrases from our sample, 70 units, 30 examples, 42% were translated through translation or transformation of calculation. 5 examples, 7% descriptive translation, 14 examples, 20% permutation of words, 15 examples, 22% concretization, 5 examples, 7% adding words, 1 example, 1% lowering the word. Thank you for your attention.